Thank you for tuning into Beast Watch News News Brief at the most current and comprehensive Bible prophecy website on the internet, beastwatchnews.com. All Bible prophecy news, all the time. Stay tuned for news. Today's scripture reading is Isaiah chapter 10, verses 1 and 2. Woe to those who make unrighteous laws and writers who have prescribed toil to keep the needy back from right ruling and to take what is right from the poor of my people, that widows become their prey and orphans their plunder. The Israeli military described a Friday launch from a base on the Mediterranean coast as the test of the propulsion system of a missile, on which it declined to elaborate. It appears, though, that Israel was testing its long-range nuclear missile delivery system at the same time that Russia was starting its largest military exercise ever held in the Mediterranean. The Egyptian crisis has brought Fatah and Hamas to an all-new high, with tensions between them, and militants have stepped up their attacks on the Egyptian Sinai, and the Israelis have allowed an Egyptian Apache gunship to be placed in Sinai to combat the terror threat there. We're back to concerns over Iran now that the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, is reportedly set to launch a new last-ditch effort in the next few days to persuade the U.S. to credibly revive the military option against Iran. He is saying that Iran is getting closer and closer to the bomb and has said that Israel may have to deal with Iran before the U.S. does. In Syria, the recent strike on an arms depot in Latakia was a naval intervention by Israel and was not an airstrike, according to Middle Eastern intelligence sources. According to the report, the attack was carried out using a Dolphin-class submarine and was well coordinated with the United States administration. If this report is correct, it would be Israel's first naval intervention in Syria. And tens of thousands of Russian troops are now on alert after the suspected Israeli strike destroyed Russian missiles in Syria. Syria, though, is denying that Israel attacked them, and Israeli officials are mum on these reports. While the Syrian army is gaining ground against the rebels are now clashing with jihadists in the wake of their commander's assassination last week. Months of uneasy calm between the jihadists and the mainstream Syrian opposition spilled into fierce fighting over the weekend in Aleppo, days after the Free Syria army commander was assassinated by a jihadi group. The Obama administration is now showing its evil, ugly hand regarding the Muslim Brotherhood and the coup that took place in Egypt. The Obama administration is signifying its strong disapproval of Israel and Egypt taking matters in their own hands, according to the Debka file. The Egyptian army is being accused of persecuting the Muslim Brotherhood after deposing President Mohamed Morsi. Washington is also highly displeased with the campaign the Egyptian army launched after the coup, with Israel's active support to root out the Islamist terror blighting the Sinai Peninsula. U.S. warships and Marines are now parked off Egypt's Red Sea coast as a deterrent to the generals in Cairo. For whipping Israel into line, the administration used another method, which was those Pentagon leaks naming Israeli airstrikes as being responsible for the explosions at the Syrian weapons depot outside the port town of Latakia on July 5th. Obama has showed his hand in another way in this Egypt snafu. There's been a secret agreement between Obama and the Muslim Brotherhood to give 40% of the Sinai to Gaza, according to this report, and Obama has called for Morsi's release from the Egyptian military. The Chinese army is preparing for a conflict with the United States. The PLA of China is making significant strides toward developing a global military power large enough to protect its rapidly increasing global economic interests, according to an author of a new book on China, and the Chinese naval fleet has now been seen off northern Japan. Under economic news, Fitch has cut France's credit rating on Friday to AA+ on an uncertain economic outlook amid the ongoing Eurozone crisis and the need for structural reform. Spain is said to be coming out of its recession, and the central bank is keeping rates on hold but says that future easing does still loom. The Department of Justice has tightened its guidelines on using reporters' data by the U.S. government. Attorney General Eric Holder's new guidelines on criminal leak investigations involving members of the media would prevent the FBI from labeling reporters as co-conspirators, according to details leaked to Reuters and the New York Times by an unnamed Justice Department official. The guideline would also make it more difficult for prosecutors to obtain a journalist's telephone record without informing them of the subpoena, according to the Justice Department official, who said the guidelines went as far as the department can go on its own until Congress passes the media shield legislation. The next scandal to hit the Obama administration is the U.S. State Department being caught in a massive human trafficking operation, and Homeland Security Chief Napolitano is getting ready to resign. The White House has begun to vet her replacements. George Zimmerman has been found not guilty in the Trayvon Martin case. He is being fully acquitted, but the Trayvon Martin verdict has sparked worries of riots. The NAACP and DOJ said that the federal charges against George Zimmerman will be brought by them, since he was not found guilty in the lower court, so his persecution will continue. Last winter, cops shot an innocent man in his bed, and no charges were filed at that time. Dustin Theoharis was asleep in his bed when a Department of Corrections officer and King County Sheriff's Department rushed into his house, busted into his bedroom, and began to unload their pistols on this man. It is estimated that the two officers fired over 20 rounds, 16 of which landed in Mr. Theoharis. According to his attorney, Eric Hyped, Theoharis suffered a broken shoulder, 2 broken arms, broken legs. He had a compression fracture to his spine, damage to his liver and spleen. The kicker here is that Theoharis was not the guy the police were after. You know, we're seeing more and more of this. Don't be fooled by thinking that you might actually make it all the way to a FEMA camp. These people are practicing on how to kill us in our beds. Our government has so militarized our local police and sheriffs that these men are now enraged at everyone. They despise everyone they do not know personally, and they despise some people that they do know. Only Jehovah can deliver his people now. Americans are no longer under his protection. We will be seeing the increase of persecution and attacks of people sleeping in their beds, even people who are not involved in any crimes and who are completely innocent. A Gestapo bunch of cops in Pittsburgh forced their way into a woman's home because she had not cut her grass. A massive dust storm enveloped southern Arizona over the weekend. The storm developed south of Casa Grande and began moving northwest, closer to the Phoenix area. It apparently didn't make it all the way to the Phoenix area, though. There's a controversial play afoot depicting Jesus and the apostles as gays, and Cosmopolitan magazine is pushing women to embrace promiscuity, calling sex with virtual strangers normal and natural. The article continues by advising women to avoid jumping into bed with men who seem sketchy, but the bottom line, according to Cosmo, maintains that one's virtue is not only antiquated, but actually harmful. This is Beastwatch News Daily Update. See these and other stories at beastwatchnews.com. Bible prophecy news every day except Shabbat.